Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation with Evolving HR. This week, we have Erica Farmer back. Erica, you're the first returning guest on this series, but it feels quite fitting because your area of expertise is something that everybody's talking about constantly at the moment. So it makes an awful lot of sense that I would have you back again. You've been having some interesting experiences since we last spoke, haven't you, around leadership behavior and how people are coping with change messages. And I think from what you said to me before, you've been finding yourself as the delivery person of these change messages, which isn't necessarily always your intention when you go in to run one of your workshops. Do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Thanks, Kirsty, and thank you for having me back. And it's an honor to be the first person that's kind of come back to give the next stage, the next step, and share that. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time culturally in organizations when it comes to the AI conversation right now. And I think we're at the beginning of being right in the thick of it, right? Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's using large language models. You've got the polarization on LinkedIn of people that love it, people that hate it, and all the challenges that go in between, which is really interesting. And one of my catchphrases has become, AI didn't create the problem, but it shined a light on it. So I wanted to share with your membership, your community, your watchers, your listeners, because I think this will resonate, certainly from a HR perspective. I remember being in corporate and within either sitting in operations in L&D or HR in L&D, and always thinking, gosh, I don't know how my HR friends do it. The flack that they take, the balls they have to have, the courage. It always seemed like, oh, sorry, I got hair in my mouth. A HR business partner or a lead was the first person to share a message with a leadership team or an organization. And was unfortunately that person that would get the change reaction because of that message.
The whole don't shoot the messenger thing.
Don't shoot the messenger. Exactly that. Being the conscience of the organization, I suppose. That's what HR is great at. But sometimes you're working with leaders that perhaps aren't emotionally intelligent enough to understand the impact of their reaction when they hear things at the first time. So I'm more and more working with organizations and speaking to organizations where they've made a decision for whatever reason to perhaps be more insular or more kind of step back from what's happening in AI. And it's interesting how when you go and share either a keynote or a workshop or a conversation around, for example, we are moving from a knowledge-based economy to a skills-based economy because we know large language models have democratized knowledge, right? We can all access most knowledge now really easily through bespoke responses and good prompting and natural language processing in AI tools. Yeah. And I shared that recently with an organization, and the leadership team really struggled with it. They really struggled with just some of the basic concepts of the changes that we've already made in society and the things that we're talking about that will bring us benefits, but there will be challenges for that. And we know that there's some great knowledge and research coming from the likes of the World Economic Forum that says, yes, we're seeing a number of roles displaced because of AI, but we're actually seeing a larger number of opportunities and jobs created due to AI. So there's a net increase in opportunities, not the decrease that everybody talks about. And it just kind of made me empathize with our HR friends when you are, say, the first over the hill that gets the arrows, right? So, in battle, when you've got the person leading the charge at the front and they're the people that gets the arrow shot at them. And I'm kind of in that space a little bit with leaders at the moment. And I thought, I just need to talk to Kirsty about that and get her view from a HR perspective, because I don't think I'm on my own when it comes to that. And I don't want this to be a poor me, by the way. I'm not playing the victim.
No, fair.
But it's definitely a conversation around where leadership is in general when it comes to things like AI and culture, I think.
It's really interesting as well. So when you talk about the first over the hill gets the arrows, that takes me back to a situation I had at a company once where the board had made a decision that we could no longer afford to maintain our final salary pension program. So as a lot of companies did 15, 20 years ago, so they made the decision that we were going to move from defined benefit to defined contribution. And guess who had to tell all the staff? That would be me, and the HR team. And so we were, I mean, we were in a situation where we found ourselves presenting what the new pension plan was going to look like, and had been told not to focus too much on what they were losing, but just focus on, of course, the savvy ones, and it's like 1 out of 100 people actually read about their pension and knew what it meant. So you could see the penny dropping all around the room and thinking, oh God, like there's going to be some interesting conversation at the end of this. And you get a mix of reactions, don't you? People are being confronted with a change that they aren't ready for, don't like, weren't expecting to hear about. And we absolutely had to try and field those questions the way the best way we could. What's interesting in your situation, though, is you don't work for the organization. You're being brought in as an expert by somebody who obviously thought that was a really good idea and people needed to hear it or were ready to hear it. And then finding yourself in a situation where, nobody else went over this hill first.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And for me, it exposes the lack of activation in leaders right now. So you might get leaders who, they've got it on their strategic plan for their area of the business to become AI literate and AI enabled, or choose your own terminology that works. But becoming kind of having that as a strategic plan and even being engaged versus being activated is two very different things. And I think for leaders right now, certainly the ones that I've worked with, start to see the gap in regards to, oh God, this is actually what I need to do now. And I didn't realize that. And that starts with my own mindset and how I feel about stuff. Because if I can't be vulnerable or role model or share, then how am I expecting other people to do that? And I know it's cliche, but the organizations that are going to win with this, and as you've mentioned before, the pace is becoming quicker and quicker and quicker here, are the organizations that can flex and be adaptable and agile and take people with them and be great storytellers and have psychological safety and all of the great stuff that we talk about. And I'm worried for people that, don't have that kind of leadership in organization, especially like you said, when they bring in the HR BP or the lead or a speaker or a trainer or whatever, and they think, oh, it's okay, it'll all be fine, it'll be great, we'll do this. And then suddenly they're kind of going, oh my God, I didn't know they were going to say that. And I didn't know, oh my God, I didn't know, what does that mean? And oh my God, like, I feel exposed now, and that's not what we wanted. And it's just a really interesting piece that highlights not even delegation, dumping, I would say, in regards to responsibility. So it's an interesting time.
It highlights a number of different issues for me because, I was talking to you just before we started recording, and I can remember certain people that I knew back in the day who were absolutely resistant to smartphones. We're never going to get a mobile phone, never going to get the internet, never going to get a smartphone. There's something really interesting about human nature that has this the sort of almost innate fear of change, like anything new, like that sounds scary. And then we all end up adopting it at different rates. I mean, there's barely a person under the age of 90 on the planet that doesn't have a smartphone now, or at least a mobile phone. My mother-in-law she's 89. She has a mobile phone, but she doesn't have a smartphone, but she's got an iPad, so she can use it. But just, but it's, there's always this, and it happens a lot in organizations. It happens a lot with leaders, that there is the real struggle to change how you're doing things and move on to something new. And I guess there's an element of risk involved. Like, you might get it wrong. You might, do something silly while you're getting the hang of it. I mean, but I don't know. I don't understand why people can't see that it's the people that do adopt the new technology and keep a pace with change that make the greatest and fastest progress in organizations.
Yeah. And I wonder sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, I wonder how much things like ego get in the way, because if I'm a leader of an organization that I've worked my way up the ranks, and what I don't know isn't worth knowing, and I'm a technical expert. And all I've done is that vertical in regards to expertise, and I'm leading what is now a technical organization. But now you're saying, actually, that isn't the skill set and the mindset that's going to help organizations win. Actually, I need to be more emotionally intelligent, flexible, agile, inspirational. I need to be a great storyteller, all the things we train leaders in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's kind of could feel like a personal attack potentially against your legacy, your ego, your power, your resources, kind of all that stuff, really. So,
yeah, I mean, that's, funnily enough, that's the second time ego has come up in conversation today for me when talking about leaders in an organization and why they're reluctant to change. The other example was completely different topic, but it was, I can remember I've said to the person, do you think ego plays a part in that? And they just burst out laughing. I said, well, I tiptoe around it because I don't want to make assumptions, but I do think that. I think it's like you said, if somebody's worked really, really hard to get to a certain position, doing a certain thing, to have somebody come in and tell them like, well, there's not quite the same value to that thing that you've been doing for 20, 30 years anymore. Now you have to do a new thing. I think that's really hard for people to hear. But I think, I don't know, I don't even think that it's generational. I don't think it's fair to say, you know, I'm 53. I don't think it's fair to say it's the over 50s, for example. I know people 20 years younger than me that are very reluctant to adopt any AI technology and just talk about it in terms of, well, it's taking all these jobs away. And we covered that a little bit in our first conversation, but the press doesn't help. And I won't go off on a tangent about the press, but I literally saw an article this morning about all the roles that AI is getting rid of. And the number, over 1 million, can't remember the age group, 18 to 24-year-olds that are neither in work or education. They call them needs or something.
Needs, yeah.
And there's like it's hit 1 million now. And the press is firmly placing the blame for that at the door of AI.
Oh, of course they are.
Yeah, of course they are. So, but it's, you know, I understand. So I do understand that there's this trepidation. And if you've got the voice of the press in the background going, oh, God, you know, hair on fire, it's a disaster. But I don't know, I just think in order to be a good leader in an organization, you have to stay at the forefront of things, and you have to be open to change, and you have to be adaptable, and because organizations don't stay the same. Nothing
and
stays the same.
Surely your job is to think 12 months ahead, 24 months ahead, 5 years ahead, even if you don't know what that landscape is. None of us do. We don't have a crystal ball. But your role is to make sure the organization is resilient and can continue. And that looks like things like training for your people and great communication and great management and inspiration and culture and benefits and all the stuff that we all know of. So again, AI isn't causing these problems, but it's absolutely very clearly shining into all of those cracks that we've all kind of known and talked about it for a long time, and maybe run a leadership course to try and hopefully solve the problem and all this kind of stuff. But this is really starting. This is the tip of the iceberg with this stuff. And if you're working or partnering with a leader who operates in that way, I guess you've got a choice. The choice is you either have that conversation if you think you can shift the dial, or you don't. If you think that you've put too much energy into it and it won't shift the dial. And that must be a tricky decision to make as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to have to be very careful with how I phrase this so that I don't give away the company. I did some work with a company a couple of years ago, and their industry was very much something that was very popular with much, much older people, like retired and older people. And it was very, very clear that something needed to change because that demographic wasn't going to be around in 20 years time. Sure. And the younger generations were not remotely embracing the thing that they did. So it's kind of like a dying art, as it were. And the HR team in that organization were battling constantly with employees who had been there for 30 years and just wanted to carry on doing what they'd always done. And that wasn't even necessarily a technology piece. It was just something that was popular once and isn't anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, HR plays quite a role in managing change and people's attitude to change, and actually even getting them to have a conversation about, how could AI help us with this?
Mm-hmm.
What are the possibilities here? It was, I mean, I do think, but it's interesting, like why should it be HR that's facilitating those conversations?
Yeah,
You would
they
hope
should be
that,
part of the conversation, but not like,
yes,
yeah,
but not
and
necessarily the one that initiates it or leads it. You would hope that would come from the CEO, but it often doesn't. It sounds like you're seeing that as well.
100%. And you're absolutely right about change. So in the book, the first principle I talk about is no matter what our job role is, we are change architects. But that doesn't mean we're always the first over the hill. That means we're in partnership with everybody on governance, with the senior team. We are managing the leaders who should be the people out there being the first over the hill, for example. So I just think it's just exposing quite a lot of behaviors, and it made me kind of reflect and think, well, cultures typically are as good or as bad as the behaviors that we tolerate, right? So and if they're people who are kind of frontline or junior, then that goes through performance management and coaching or PDP or whatever you call it. But what happens if that's the person at the top behaving like that? Like, that's a whole different can of worms, right? From a culture perspective.
Yes, it is. And I have encountered that in 2 organizations that I've worked for. And in both cases, I made the choice to move on because one was an owner and one was a CEO. And it turned out about a year after I left, the board replaced the CEO in the other place because I think people started to say something. It wasn't that no one realized, people started to say something. But in the previous one, he was the owner. And it's you kind of have that, well, they're not going anywhere. And, I've worked with multiple people over the years who were not open to new ideas or didn't welcome any suggestions on how they could improve things because they couldn't fathom that they weren't perfect as it was. And so again, it's like, it's that decision that you have to make as an individual. Am I going to be able to move the dial? If not, maybe I should start looking for something else. Because it's, some people just are absolutely rigid, but it's one of the most frustrating types of organization to work in is when you've got somebody at the very top who is unable to see that they're holding the organization back and unwilling to change.
Absolutely. Really absolutely tough. It's fascinating. And then you see the people around them, and how they behave based on that person. And are they too scared to say anything? What do they really think if you were to take them aside and say, what did you think about what so-and-so said? And where do you stand on this? And often you find that circle, the -1 maybe, fractured and split, and a bit of a kind of balance on that as well, really. And then how do you make decisions as a senior team then if you've got very opposing views on? You'd like to think it's done in curiosity and love and value, having those conversations, but unfortunately it's often done in conflict and judgment, I think, instead, isn't it? So just by default behaviors.
I think about the one of the situations, the CEO that was eventually replaced. The leadership team we would all have conversations separately to the once a week leadership team meetings, which were farcical, quite frankly. And so we would agree on a path forward insofar as we could. This particular CEO was also very controlling, and there was nothing. I mean, I remember I had to get sign off for a holiday tracking software that was going to cost £99. And I wasn't even allowed to make that decision without going through the CEO. And I can remember saying to him, this is not an effective use of your time. You don't need to be signing off on holiday tracking software for 99 quid. And he just looked at me and went, I sign off on everything here. I thought, okay, fine.
And those kind of attitudes and behaviors might have served him well, right, in a previous time, potentially, but it's certainly not going to serve him well now going forwards, when like we know that the skills like learning agility, critical thinking, creativity, all of this stuff, we're almost losing the hierarchy a little bit because of the way skills are now coming. And I just think I just feel sorry for the people in organizations like that, where it's clearly about the leadership view on their view on change. It's not even about AI, right? It's about change and how they feel about it and what it means for their role. So yeah,
that is going to make or break the organization,
isn't it?
But what I find crazy is, even if you're a shareholder of an organization and you have a stake in it, we're all only going to be employed for as long as the organization is successful, or shareholders are only going to be receiving dividends for as long as the organization is successful. The number of times that you see people within an organization pulling in different directions and not pulling in the direction that the organization needs to go blows my tiny mind, because it's like, if you keep clashing on this, if you keep refusing to adopt this technology, if you keep refusing to listen to outside input or make any changes, the organization will fail. And then none of you will have jobs. Like, how can you not see that?
But doesn't that come back to your point about ego, though, that I'm so good in what I do and what I've historically done that the organization couldn't possibly fail? So don't know.
I do think that's true. It's really weird. And again, I was talking to somebody about this morning, how you see people in organizations operating in silos. And well, we're not going to give it to them because we don't like them. It's like, same company, guys, same company, same goal. And it's a human nature thing. I mean, there's an argument that we were not actually designed to work in an organizational structure because we don't do well in that environment. We've certainly got enough examples that most people can give of not seeing humans play well together in that kind of environment. And yet we persist in creating organizations with hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people in them, and assuming that everybody's going to be pulling in the same direction.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's just, and I think part of it, and you'll appreciate this as I do, is when you're employed, you just get paid. And for some people, it's easy to hide and just turn up, or pretend you're turning up, or log on, or whatever it might be, and you're still going to get paid. You and I don't do our job. We don't turn up for our clients. We don't do all the things that we do. We don't get paid. 100%. We are performance-based effectively on that perspective. So, and I've seen that divide even bigger since COVID. I don't know if you've seen that, but there's still a lot. I think there's even more people that turn up and do a shit job because they know they're going to get paid, because things have very much changed. And it might be that actually through the pandemic, they've realized that their well-being is more important to them than, being at the grindstone all the time, or, doing the school runs more important. And that may have taken away the motivation to do a great job or not, because they're still going to get paid. And I'm not saying that applies to everybody, by the way. I'm just giving examples.
But I think it's funny as well. It's like people vote with their feet, or what I mean by that is they vote with their effort. And there was that ludicrous expression, quiet quitting, that came out a few years ago, and everybody was talking about that for a while. Sometimes it's not even about quitting. It's like they'll do enough to not get fired. They do enough, but it's not about giving all of the extra that had been expected previously. And I think, there are a lot of people, there are equally people that will still go above and beyond what they're expected to do, and, don't get rewarded for it, or do get rewarded for it. That depends on your organization. But I think people have kind of reevaluated what's important to them. And it's not just about the work that they're doing, it's the environment that they're working in, the people that they're working with, the people that they're reporting to. I think people also need to have an element of inspiration from the leaders in their organization. It's very, very hard to stay super motivated and giving your all every single day if you can see that your leadership are going to just drive this into the ground because they are not recognizing the challenges or aren't open to hearing the challenges that are ahead of them.
Yeah, and then that puts those people in that position of kind of challenging their own integrity. I remember being in situations where I was told I had to deliver a message that I did not agree with. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do as well. And you can see it a mile off, when people don't buy into that comms or that team meeting or the messaging or whatever. And I think that it just fractures the organization when you've got a leadership team that kind of put their own needs above their people's needs. And ultimately, my understanding of good leaders is that they are there to serve the needs of others, not to serve themselves. And I think that can be quite questionable and quite obvious, to your point around inspiration, and how do I, as the leader of organization, actually check myself in regards to change or AI or whatever it is, be aware enough to take the feedback that I might be getting in regards to my behavior, if someone's brave enough to give it to me, by the way, and actually do something different. Like, why would I do that if I'm on a big money job at the top and I can make changes and say jump and people say how high? So
exactly. I did a due diligence a few years ago for an IFA company. And it wasn't a partnership. You'd have thought it was. It wasn't a partnership like a law firm where people have equity and it's essentially they're running their own business. These the independent financial advisors were all self-employed. There were 3 very senior ones in the organization. And I went into, because they were looking for investment, I went into due diligence. They were operating 3 separate businesses. Each of these guys obviously they had their own client list. They had their own processes. They had their own admin teams. They had their own junior financial advisors beneath them. They had their own letterhead. They all did everything their way and the way that they had done it for years. A couple of them were very close to retirement. I think there were four of them, actually. A couple of them were very close to retirement. A couple of them were younger than me, but nobody wanted to challenge anybody. So I remember thinking, well, there's a really quick win here for organizational efficiency. Like maybe try and run it like one organization. Just a thought. I've no idea because it was a few years ago. I have no idea if those changes were made, and but my recommendations were all around. Just imagine how much you could get done and how much time you would free up for you and your teams if you had one approach to dealing with your clients instead of 4.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably again because of ego, right? Like,
I think so.
My way of doing things is better, or whatever it is. Yeah.
It was things like, my clients like this personal touch, my clients like this. And I'm thinking, well, if you're a good IFA, your clients are going to stay regardless of the letterhead that they receive a letter on, or who gets in touch with them. It was just, one of those things where you just think, good God, this could be such a great business, and you're putting spanners in your own, those sticks in your own spokes kind of thing, and obstacles in your own way. And it just, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you. Yeah. And I guess I want my message to be, for anybody in HR who's working with perhaps the kind of leaders that we might have touched upon today, or anything that we've talked about that resonates, and I'm sure it will, is make a decision in regards to how much energy you put into that and what change you think you're going to make, but also don't that has to be the person that goes over the hill and gets the arrows, that leader. And if they're not, then there's that will show cracks in your culture and your change programs, and ultimately your financial success in your future and all of the stuff that goes to that. So I guess what I've been really had my eyes open to over the last month or so, and I've had 25 years in corporate and 7 years running my own business and worked with a number of big clients, is really, we're right down to the impact of the leadership mindset is fundamentally a make or break for your AI deployment right now. No question at all.
I have nothing to add to that. That is an excellent note on which to finish. But you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. It's that's where it's got to come from. They've got to set the example, lead by example, and bring everybody along with them. I mean, that's the definition of a leader: someone who brings other people along with them. So, brilliant,
interesting.
Erica, thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
I love the different angle. I think there are so many different challenges out there right now. And when you messaged me and said this is what I want to talk about, I was like, oh yes, I like this. But it's not all about the technology. It is about the human behavior and the willingness to adapt and embrace and all of that as well. And that is, it's probably more significant than the technology itself. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for joining me. Always lovely to see you. And I get to see you in person later this week. We're recording this in early June, and I'm going to see Erica speaking at the Festival of Work later this week. So that's pretty cool. Erica, I know I've shared your links before, but where can people find you if they need to?
LinkedIn, Erica Farmer. Please send me a request. I'll be very happy to accept it. When it comes to AI and future skills training, quantumrise.co.uk is the website for the training company, and professional speaking and keynotes, ericafarmer.ai.
Brilliant. I will put all of those down below. And for anybody watching, do also subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get to watch all of these conversations that I have with people. We will keep continuing to record these conversations around the issues that we know that you're all facing. And yeah, I hope that you enjoy them. So thanks very much.